Hi everyone, I'm Brandon Borup and I'm here to help you with playing snare drum. Today we're going to be talking about the exercise 8 on a hand. The number 8 refers to how many strokes you'll be playing in each hand. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 with the hand exchange in between. The exercise I'm going to show you today is actually called 8-6-4-2-1, and it's not any special exercise. I'm sure a lot of people have played something similar to this in the past. So I'm going to demonstrate the exercise, kind of walk you through it a little bit. Then we're going to talk about some technique and practice ideas, philosophies, if you will, that will help you become better at it. So here we go. I'm going to put the metronome on. I'll count us off. 1, 2, set, tick, 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 go, tick, tick, toe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, I'll do that one more time, just counting out loud, but I'm sure you get the hang of it already. 8, 8, 8, 8, 6, 6, 6, 6, 4, 4, 4, 4, 2, 2, 2, 2, 1. And we start out on the right hand and go to the left hand. So, one more time. 1, 2, off the right hand, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Awesome, awesome. So now that we're all on the same page of how the exercise goes, let's talk about some technique things and different practice philosophies like I was talking about before. So we're going to start out with posture. Posture is extremely important to playing percussion. We always want to make sure that we're sitting up straight, that we've got our feet flat on the floor. If we're sitting or if we're standing up, we want to have our feet shoulder width apart. A lot of times in marching band, they want you to keep your feet together. So that's another thing that you might want to practice for if you're preparing to be inside a marching band, is actually keeping your feet together and also marking time, because playing the exercise and marking time at the same time is a monster all its own. So make sure that you're practicing playing the piece and marking time. We want to have our shoulders relaxed. I find that people who play matched grip primarily, that they tend to want to tense up a little bit. So just make sure that you keep the shoulders nice and relaxed, keep them down to the ground, so that way everything can flow and we don't have any sort of tension build up before we even get to our hands. And then also the sticks. The tips of the sticks should be in the center of the drum head when we're setting up. And I always like to point out to my students that we create the top part of a triangle, as I'm sure you can see here would be the bottom part, and we've got our two sides here that we create with our drumstick. We put that right in the center of the drum head. And then also, we want to make sure that the sticks are angled down towards the drum. I see students sometimes try to have their sticks flat, and they catch a little bit of rim when they're playing, which just totally makes sense. So I like to acknowledge the fact that the sticks need to be down at an angle, so that way we don't run into any problems with playing rim shots when we don't need to. Excellent. So, preparation. This is a really important part to playing 8 on a hand. In fact, I would say it's probably the most important part, or one of the most important elements. So whenever we play 8 on a hand, I like to do a tap off, and it usually goes 1, take 2, take 3, take 4, take 1, 2, set, take, go, lift 1. And that lift, or the preparation, is always going to happen on the tay of 4 before we come in. And the same thing in the middle of the exercise when we switch hands. So I'll demonstrate real quick. 1, 2, set, tay, go, tay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, lift, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, lift, 1, tay, 2, tay, 3, tay, 4, lift, 1, tay, 2, tay, 3, tay, 4, lift, 1. Awesome. So yeah, we want to make sure that that preparation is full and healthy and sets us up to be able to play the volume that we want to play continuously throughout the exercise. So we want to prepare at the same height that we're going to play the exercise. And you notice I'm going for a nice healthy 15-inch stroke right now. Drumstick's coming straight up and down. So I want to prepare the drumstick straight up and down. 3, tay, 4, tay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, tay, 4, tay, 1, tay, 2, tay, 3, tay, 4, lift, 1, tay, 2, tay, 3, tay, 4, lift, 1. And that way I always produce a really healthy sound, and we want that sound to be seamless from hand to hand. We want it to sound like we never changed hands at all. It's an illusion, if you will. Great. And then also when we get done with the stroke, when we're lifting, what is the other hand supposed to do? Well, we need to play a downstroke in there. So you have to be able to play that preparation and the downstroke at the same time in the middle of the exercise. I'll demonstrate once, twice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, down, up. And you'll notice that I prepare and play a downstroke at the same time. Downstroke is where I do not allow the drumstick to bounce off the drum head again. Upstroke, downstroke. Upstroke, downstroke. Notice that both strokes can have a preparation at the beginning of them, so that doesn't affect it. You can play a tap, that's an upstroke. Notice I'm not preparing that tap, but I'm coming off the drum head. That's what names the stroke. Upstroke, downstroke. Upstroke, downstroke. Great. Okay, let's move on because I don't want to spend too much time on that. Let's talk about grip and how we're going to hold the drumstick. I tend to use a 3-point fulcrum whenever I'm playing. It really helps me for buzz rolls because I tend to not use the back fingers as much on buzz rolls. I definitely use all my fingers for double stroke rolls, so let's get that clear. I see a lot of students out there that want to play a double stroke roll with their pinky and their ring finger off the drumstick. Notice that it has a teku, 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 teku. I'm getting 2 different sounds out of the drumstick versus having all the fingers on there. It makes playing the second note easier to be successful because we want it to be even with the first note, right? So, anyways, 3-point fulcrum. When I say that, a lot of people want to play a 2-point fulcrum, which is where we have our thumb and our pointer finger as the primary device to hold the drumstick. It's our pivot point, if you will. I actually looked up fulcrum because I just wanted to be a little nerdy. It's the point on which a lever rests or is supported and on which it pivots. This is the pivoting that we're talking about right here, and this is the fulcrum, the point in which the lever rests. The drumstick rests inside there and is supported, and it moves in there. I don't have any problems with this fulcrum other than it tends to hurt after playing for more than 30 minutes or so. So I like to use a 3-point fulcrum where I'm getting a lot of bang for my buck from my middle finger also being added to that combo. And then once I add my ring finger and my pinky finger, it makes it real easy to get a full sound out of the drum, a good bounce, to have a lot of velocity, which we'll talk about velocity here in a second, but it really, really lends a lot to my sound. So, fingers stay on the drumstick at all times. I know I just said that sometimes my fingers come off for buzz rolls. Let's try to keep them on there because I can play them on there too. But anyways, and then I always like to think of the drumstick as an extension of my arm too. So if I were to turn my hand over and look at the path the drumstick takes across my hand, it's pretty much a diagonal cut across. If I had a box in my hand, it would be going from this corner to this corner, but just a little bit more comfortably in there. And then I always felt like the drumstick was a continuance of this bone that lays right here in your arm, so that when you turn it over, I don't tend to see a lot of butt coming out of the backside of my hands. So, and it helps me get a really big sound if I have more of the drumstick versus in front of me than behind my hand, if that makes sense. I don't want to be choked up on the drumstick. And I always tell people, would you hammer a nail in the wall like that? Would you hold the hammer in the middle of the handle and try to nail it in like that? No, you would hold the very end of the handle, so that way you have all the weight at the end of it, and you can create a lot of weight and velocity. So velocity, there's that word again that I said a second ago. Velocity is speed. It's how fast the drumstick is moving. And most of the time we're going to need a quick moving drumstick to create really good sounds that are consistent and ideal and characteristic of what we're trying to do. Without velocity, there can't be any bounce, I find. Have you ever tried to bounce a drumstick and go really slow? It doesn't happen, right? I'm not using enough speed in my hand, but if I speed it up, I get a lot more response that way. And so, how do we apply this to 8 on a hand? You're probably asking. So, whenever we're playing 8 on a hand, in order to have that big height, we have to have a lot of velocity behind the drumstick to create a nice bounce and also to keep the drumstick in time. Fast moving drumstick is always going to have a nice sound to it. Always use a metronome when we're playing this exercise. And I want you to take time to be looking at your hands now whenever you're getting ready for your marching seasons or anything like that. Because this is your chance to do that in your own practice time. If you go into a rehearsal and you're just looking at your hands the whole time, you might get in trouble, or someone might ask you to not do that. But when you're at home and you're by yourself and you're playing the exercise at your own speed and you've got it memorized, it helps to look at your hands because you can see these things happening. You can see your fulcrum. You can see your thumb on the side of the drumstick. You can see that you're hitting in the center of the snare drum, and you're creating muscle memory for that. So take the time in your own practice to look at your hands and become familiar with the way they look instead of waiting for a rehearsal. And then also, what is the hand that's not playing supposed to be doing? I just always like to make mention that it needs to be pointed at the drum head at a downward angle in the center, ready to play, ready to be prepared at any time. All right, and then the last thing I want to talk about is legato stroke. And legato is when, and it's used a lot more when you're a wind player or a string player, but it does happen in percussion, and we've kind of adapted it to things that we do. But it's two notes that are connected together, right? Two sounds that touch each other. There's no break in between. So how do we apply that to percussion and our stroke? Well, when we have two notes, we're not stopping in the middle of it, right? We might, if we were trying to practice a specific technique, But I've got to tell you that this feels a little uncomfortable, and I would not want to play like this all the time. When we say legato, we mean two notes that are connected. Well, when we say legato stroke, we mean two strokes that are connected. So it's continuous motion from one strike to the next. Notice that my drumstick does not stop. And so that's how I want you to try to play 8 on the hand. Without the notes stopping. To have a nice flow that's uninterrupted. So, let's play 8 on a hand a couple more times together, or the 8, 6, 4, 2, 1 combo, and then we'll move on. Alright, here we go. So, make sure you're checking your posture, make sure you're preparing the drumstick, check on your grip. We want to have a good amount of velocity so that we can create a big stroke, have a big sound. We want to wash our hands the more comfortable we come with the exercise, and make sure that we're creating legato strokes within one hand. So let's give that a shot. 2, set, take, go. Take. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, set, take, go. Good, good. So, let's do a faster tempo before we head off. But this is an exercise that I like to challenge my students that are in junior high school to be able to play at 100 beats per minute. This is 80. I'll play it once at 100 at the end. But that's kind of a minimum goal that I like to have them all reach, and I like to call it the 100 club. So, here we go. 1, 2, set, go. Take. Good. Alright, let's go ahead and kick it into high gear. We're going to play it at 100 once. Something I'd like to point out is that on my metronome settings, I've got it set to where it's a 16th note subdivision, which is the same rhythm that I'm playing right now. Some people might call that overkill, but if you're just now getting reacquainted with playing your metronome with your metronome again, it might be a good idea to have this sort of subdivision on. And also, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Notice there's a higher pitch on beat 1 every time. This confirms for me that I am playing in time, and that I haven't played too many notes on one hand, or too few notes. And so it lets me know whenever I play that last note, and I'm counting in my head that was 1, it confirms that, 1. So, very useful tool whenever you're practicing. Here we go, now 1, 3,